Have you ever noticed that the moment you decide to do something important, your body suddenly feels heavy? Your mind gets foggy, distractions become irresistible, and almost instantly you label yourself as lazy, undisciplined, or broken. But what if that label is wrong? What if the resistance you feel isn't a flaw, but a signal? What if your mind isn't sabotaging you, but protecting you from something it believes you're not ready to face? Most people grow up believing motivation is a moral trait. If you act, you're strong. If you hesitate, you're weak. This belief quietly turns your inner world into a war. One part of you demands action and success. Another part pulls the brakes, delays, escapes, or shuts down. And instead of asking why this is happening, you punish yourself. You push harder, you shame yourself, you consume endless content about discipline. But the harder you force yourself, the stronger the resistance becomes. Psychology offers a different explanation. Your mind isn't a machine designed to produce output. It's a survival system. Every habit you repeat, even the ones you hate, once served a purpose. Procrastination, avoidance, numbness, distraction, these aren't random failures. They are protective strategies your nervous system learned long before you were conscious of them. Think about a time you sat down to work on something that mattered. Suddenly, you felt exhausted. You reached for your phone without thinking. That's not laziness. That's your mind trying to keep you safe. If your mind truly wanted you to fail, it wouldn't work this hard. It wouldn't drain your energy before action, create anxiety before change, or whisper doubts when you try to grow. Those responses exist for a reason. At some point in your past, taking action came with a cost. Maybe it led to embarrassment, rejection, conflict, or overwhelming expectations. Your nervous system learned the lesson before your conscious mind ever did. Carl Jung said the psyche is conservative by nature. It prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar possibility. What we call laziness is often the psyche saying, "This feels dangerous." Not physically dangerous, emotionally dangerous. Change threatens identity. Growth threatens belonging. Success threatens the stories you built to survive. That's why resistance shows up most strongly around things that matter. You're not lazy about scrolling or casual distractions. Resistance appears when action requires visibility, responsibility, or a new self-image. That's not coincidence, that's protection. This is also why brute force never works for long. You can bully yourself into action temporarily, but the cost is burnout. Anxiety turns into exhaustion. Exhaustion turns into numbness. Numbness turns into self-loathing. The cycle continues, not because you're weak, but because you're fighting yourself instead of listening. Protection doesn't mean permanence. A guard exists to assess danger, not to rule forever. The mistake is believing your only options are obedience or self-violence. There's a third option, understanding. The moment you stop asking, "How do I force myself to act?" and start asking, "What is my mind trying to protect me from?" something shifts. Resistance softens when it feels recognized. Underneath laziness often lives fear, grief, anger, unmet needs, a part of you that learned early that effort leads to pain. That part isn't your enemy. It's outdated protection still running in the background. And outdated protection can be updated, but only through awareness, not punishment. Fear isn't always loud. The most powerful fears are quiet. They show up as tiredness, distraction, or sudden disinterest. These aren't accidents. They're subtle breaks applied by a system that once learned that trying harder meant being judged, overwhelmed, or abandoned. This is why telling yourself to push through often backfires. When you force action without addressing the fear underneath, your nervous system hears the same message it heard before. Your limits don't matter, so it resists harder. From the outside, it looks like self-sabotage. From the inside, it's self-preservation. Sometimes resistance appears because the goal itself isn't aligned. Some paths are chosen for approval, not truth. In those cases, resistance is wisdom. Your system is saying this costs too much. The exhaustion you feel isn't lack of ability. It's refusal to keep betraying yourself. Action doesn't come from domination. It comes from dialogue. When you slow down enough to listen to what your resistance is guarding, you gain leverage. you can take smaller steps, create safety. Prove through experience that effort no longer equals danger. That's how trust is rebuilt. Over time, energy returns, focus sharpens. Not because you became harsher, but because you became safer to yourself. You were never lazy, you were cautious, adaptive, intelligent, in a world that didn't always make space for your nervous system. When that truth lands, something loosens. You stop fighting your own mind and start working with it. And when action comes from alignment instead of fear, it no longer feels like self-violence. It feels natural, sustainable. You move not to prove your worth, but because your energy is no longer trapped guarding old wounds. So the next time resistance appears, pause. Ask yourself what it's protecting you from. That question alone can change everything.